Basically, Mayo County Council has unanimously passed a motion calling on the local authority staff to stop cooperating with the Department of Integration. Now, you might be wondering, is that even possible? It's a non-binding motion, basically. It was passed last night. It relates to the housing of asylum seekers in the county, and councillors say they basically want an agreed strategy put in place before anyone arrives in the county. Now, Mayo has one of the highest proportions of asylum seekers in the country.
Yeah, in fairness, I think they're the second highest after Donegal, kind of per head of population.
Yeah. So I suppose they're watching, scenes play out in Roscrea and wherever else, and they seem to think this is a way of preempting, I suppose, protests and issues amongst the public.
It does strike me, Mary, like on one hand, one of the most constant criticisms of the government and their approach is their lack of communication and engagement with the local community. Yeah. I'm just not sure how helpful a kind of a decision, we're not going to engage either, is.
But you can't
it's an expression of frustration, I guess, is it?
It's an expression of frustration, and it's okay now to say you're frustrated. We are frustrated because we don't have the services. It's kind of okay to come out and say that now. The Indo had figures, I think it was on Sunday, and so it's Mayo, the second, one of the highest, and it was, I couldn't believe it. I actually thought they'd made a mistake. It was 912 per 100,000 of the population, so that's nearly 1 in 10 international protection people coming in. Like, that's a lot, right? So there was a lady on Midwest Radio, I think it was, speaking, and she works with children with autism, and she was saying the services are so stretched that they don't have nearly enough, like they're so underserviced in Mayo at the moment. And listening to her, I mean, it's difficult not to kind of feel sympathy, as in if they don't have essential services already. But then, I mean, there's a wider conversation, Kieran, I think, that we're not having, and that is the visas, like the people who are coming in to do essential work in the country. Like we are giving out unprecedented amount of visas, and refugees, like they're quite a small numbers really compared to the visas. So I think we're going to have a conversation about managed migration, and like this is just a symptom of people. They just feel they're at the end of their rope, really.
It's interesting. I was listening to Henry was reporting this morning, Ellen, from Roscrea on the Pat Kenny show, and he was speaking to people who are on the front line of this, people protesting. I just thought it was interesting to get the insights, because you got a sense of that, of the legitimate concerns. Sometimes when we say legitimate concerns, it's almost meant in a disparaging way, and I don't mean it that way, because one gentleman, like, he talked about kind of neglecting the town and industry closing down, and there being kind of a lack of opportunity for young people. He talked about Racket Hall as well as a hotel where there had been events planned that have now been cancelled, and I think an appearance by Pat Short in a few weeks' time that now can't go ahead. But so you got a real sense of why he'd be frustrated, and then in the next breath, he went on to say, and I'm not having a go at him because he's just repeating, I guess, what's swirling around out there and is said so often. But he talked about the fact that, he's not racist. There's loads of Brazilians in the town. They're brilliant because they're working. But it's all these migrants who come in and they don't work. Yeah. That's the problem we have. And that, like, whatever about your opinions and your views and how you feel, it's just like, as a statement of fact, we don't have a problem in this country with migrants coming in and sitting around on their backside.
Yeah, I'm struck by, and Mary, you raised it as well, like that woman speaking on the radio, like these problems existed before anyone arrived,
time.
So it's not the arrival of asylum seekers that I suppose is at the heart of everyone's problems. Roscrea is like so many other kind of towns around the country. I'm from one myself that is just, the life's gone out of it.
Yeah.
So there are others who would say that bringing people in actually helps revive a locality like that. But like this using of hotels and an existing functional hotel to house asylum seekers, it doesn't seem like a sustainable model.
It's real life, right? Like, you have a baptism planned for 2 weeks, like that's real life. And when that gets upset, like that's important to people. Like, you can kind of understand. Like, it does seem, Pat Short turning up for a night out, like that's one thing. But it is something, you can't really belittle people, it's their lives.
Like, there's a scrambling around that happens behind the scenes in the Department of Integration, trying to find accommodation, and when it's offered, they take it. You would wonder, is one of the lessons from this that they need to step back and decide whether it's right to take certain properties. Again, those protests in in Urlingford in Kilkenny not too long ago as well. But they weren't to do with kind of the only hotel. It was a disused kind of building. So I mean, the kind of the concerns rang a little more hollow in that situation. Whereas in Rossgrey, it is the only hotel left. So you can understand maybe for a second. I just wonder, will one of the consequences be they say, let's not just immediately say yes, let's decide if actually the blowback will not be worth it in some cases.
We need to be more selective. Like the Ballsbridge nursing home, for instance, that's a kilometre around the corner from me. We don't mind. We're actually quite happy in our area. It's been used. It's such a waste that it's been lying there. So, I ran past there earlier and they're putting up football posts in the garden, and I was thinking, great, like that garden's been empty for how many years? But it's not a hotel that I'm having my, 50th birthday party in next Friday.
I'm going to watch Pat Short in.
Pat Short, exactly. So
getting great plugs here.
It's different.
He is, I know he'll be delighted, absolutely delighted.